Kai, good to see you. Good to see you, Tia. Good to see you, Courtney. Good to see all of you who are out there. I'm Greg, also known as a star, the teacher here at Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. I am a spiritual life coach, particularly for those who are part of the work that I do. I don't really put myself out there to the public as much today. My client base is primarily those who are following the ministry in some form and who have a basic understanding of what has been taught. And I find this so much easier, and we make so much ground when I'm working with those who have the similar mindsets. If I have someone who is foreign to what I've been teaching, then I have to spend a lot of time laying a foundation. So to make better use of my time, I'm spending most of my spiritual coaching for those who are inside of the community that I've created. Okay, good. So we're going to get started this morning. I have popped up here a little lead in. And so this morning's message, I'm dealing with prosperity. So let's get started. Welcome to Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living. I'm your host, Greg, also known as Asar. We're going to start a journey this week. Today is the introduction to that journey. And the journey that we're going to go on for the next 12 weeks, this week and 12 weeks into the future, has to do with prosperity and my prosperity series. The principles that I will be teaching are universal. The teaching will be very comprehensive. Not only will you get information, but you'll get inspiration to take it to application. Here at Oasis Spiritual Center for Divine Living, it's all about mastery. It's about mastering this thing called life, and not allowing life to master you. And I'm going to be dealing with prosperity primarily because what I've come to know is that prosperity is something that's rudimentary for all of us. That is a common denominator that we have to experience if we want to walk in the fullness, or if we want to unfold into what it is we've called to do, be, or have. So when I talk about prosperity, it goes beyond just money, but it's talking about living a certain lifestyle, a lifestyle where there is no want. For the scripture says, the Lord, or the universal principles, are your shepherd. It says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. If you understand the universal principles, now I take the liberty to change the word Lord to law from which it originally came from, and it gives us the understanding of the principles. I change it from Lord to law, and the law that I'm talking about are the universal principles. So the universal principles that I'll be sharing will transcend one's belief system, transcends one's religious orientation, universal as in terms of in this ecosystem in which we live. Gravity is universal, a universal principle. We know that what goes up inside of this Earth system must come down unless it's being propelled with some form of energy that works with gravity. But if that energy source happens to break down, then whatever it is propelling up or holding up, that thing comes crashing to the ground too. Likewise, the law of gravity is not cares little or nothing whether or not you believe it. It operates outside of your beliefs. And so when I talk about universal principles, I talk about those principles that operate outside of your belief, whether you know it or not. They operate, and you can't violate them. You can't break them. You'll find yourself breaking yourself or breaking your life when you are bumping against universal principles. So we're going to start this journey. Every Saturday morning, I'll be out here at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Be about 45 minutes to an hour. It'll be a teaching, and in part of that teaching, there'll be a assignment given to you. Now, it's given to you, it's not given to me. you could take the assignment on for personal mastery. Is not so much that you do this assignment and it gets graded by me. No, it's get graded by you. So if you have a concern or you run into a blockage while you're doing the mastery application, you can shoot me an email and I'll engage you on that. But I'm not going to babysit. This is for those who have ears to hear, those who have a desire to see something very different showing up in their lives than what perhaps is showing up. So that's the journey we're about to embark upon. So let me stop sharing my screen and come forward where you can see me. So what we're going to be dealing with this morning is pretty much an introduction to not just the law of prosperity. I'm going to begin to give you some exposure this morning around the 12 universal laws. And then next week, I'm going to really begin to dive into the journey of prosperity. And why am I doing that? Why am I holding off until next week? Well, because I did not get the opportunity to really advertise or get it to my community. So I want those who want to participate in the live component, not just get it on demand, because everything I teach, I put it out there where you can get it on the YouTube channel on demand. For those of you just tuning in, the YouTube channel is Oasis Spiritual Center. You type that into your search bar inside of YouTube. It'll take you to the main page. You can hit subscribe. Then you'll have access to all the teachings. Right now there's about 30 some odd teachings out there. And I have grouped them by section. The prosperity section will be created after this is edited and it will go live. So welcome to the live teaching today. So let me start by asking this question of you. And I want you to ponder this. What is prosperity? Would you say you're prosperous? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're as prosperous as you could be, and 1 being that you are not experiencing no level of prosperity. Most of us will fall 5 and above. If you're falling below 5, then I really encourage you to get some assistance. Maybe grab hold of me and get some coaching on how to shift your life, how to shift the frequency of your life where you can experience prosperity frequently. So I have a question this morning. Before I go into this morning, I want to kind of ask those of you who are with me in the Zoom room this question. And if you raise your hand, if you want to voluntarily answer the question or respond to the question, what does an individual, or can you name one individual who is prosperous? Who is prosperous? If so, raise your hand. If you could name one individual who is prosperous. And if you go along the lower half of your screen, there is a where you can actually raise your hand. So the teachings are participatory in manner. Thank you, Courtney, for raising your hand. Good morning. How are you doing this, Courtney?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you for coming forward this morning. So can you name an individual or two that you would consider as prosperous?
Okay. So when I look at prosperity, I look at not just finances, but your way of being and your way of living your life and success in all areas. And so you didn't specify whether this person needed to be known personally by me or just someone that just, exists in this realm. But I would say a person that comes to mind is Tabitha Brown. Okay. She's a social media personality who took her new journey with veganism, to like millions and millions of people and became like America's sweetheart almost overnight. And what I see going on with her is that she's being herself. She's embraced and loved for that. She has a happy family. She has a great marriage. She is able to express herself freely as she chooses. And she's, well known. She's very financially free and prosperous. And, you know, she's looking better than she's ever looked. She's having the time of her life. And that to me is prosperity.
Awesome. Good. You can practically facilitate the course today. You kind of touched on a lot of things that we will touch on. So let me ask you, so since you're going to want to raise your hand, so let's have a little conversation this morning to frame what I want to talk about. So what would you say would be the common denominator inside of her being able to show up in life as a prosperous person, not just in your life, in your eyes, but in the eyes of many of those who view her on her social media feed? What it would be one common denominator that all prosperous people have in common? You kind of mentioned it towards the back end of your statement there you share with us.
I would say her belief in self and her belief in a higher power. I mean, I don't see how she could have attained any of this without that.
Like that. I like that. So having a connection to her spiritual essence. Yes. One of the things that I would say, now there's a difference between a rich person and a prosperous person. A rich person usually have a lot of material things. And along with those material things come a lot of concerns, life issues, but a prosperous person may have a lot of money, things at their disposal. And then again, they may be in a season of their life where they don't have all of those things at their disposal, but they still move through life with the vibrational frequency of a prosperous person. So your spiritual essence is important. So this course, this masterclass goes inside of prosperity and running on the main line or the main frequency of spirituality. That's so key. That's key. Now, one of the things I want to address for those who are tuning in, tapping in to, I will talk a lot about money. I will talk a lot about materialism. I will talk a lot about things, because things and money is a manifestation of prosperity. Okay, and let's say you not have a lot of money, but you have a well put together home. It may be a small little place where everything has its proper place, it's in order, it's neatly. It exudes prosperous. It exudes a space where there's no lack. But so sometimes we get so spiritual. And for those who are who have come by way of Christianity, we find a paradox that when we begin to talk about prosperity, we bump up against the poverty mindset. And the poverty mindset is steeped so deeply in many of us, particularly those of us who have African descent, who came here by way of the Ma'afa, or the enslavement, and our ancestors were not necessarily born on the continent, but was brought to North America. We came here and everything was stripped from us, and we were put into a position of abject poverty. And many have risen out of it, and some are still in it, and some come out and go back in. And I believe many people come out and go back in because they never deal with the concept of having a poverty paradigm or poverty conscious. So you can have a poverty conscious and bump up against wealth, and in little or no time, your wealth will dissipate because the vibration that you run is one of poverty. So if you want to be prosperous, you got to get rid of the poverty paradigm, of the poverty, consciousness that you may have. Now, you're not even aware of it. It's so subconscious. You can identify this by statements you make. Like, I save for a rainy day. That's a poverty conscious concept, because when you run in the concept of prosperity, you know there is no lack. So yes, Courtney, you hit it right on the head. And thank you for stepping so strongly and boldly into this conversation. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Great. So All right. If you're in the Zoom room and during the course of my presentation, if there's something that I say that you want me to back it up and give a little more clarity, just raise your hand. I can see your hands over there. And for those of you who are chatting with me, I want to say good morning. Hey, what's happening? Tia says she's agreed about Tabitha. I have to check out who Tabitha is. Awesome. So let's jump into this thing. So what I want to do is expose you to the principles of prosperity. Today, I want to kind of just lay out for you the 12 universal laws that can help you unlock a more spiritual and aligned life so you can show up in a very prosperous way. By discovering and aligning with the 12 laws, okay, besides the law of attraction, which most of you are familiar with, will cause you to come to terms with managing your everyday life situation. That's what's unique about Oasis Spiritual Center. It's about helping you to master the everyday contrast that shows up in your life. Contrast is always good because contrast tells you where your head is. Contrast tells you what you really believe. Contrast gives you the opportunity to exercise, to grow your faith, to know in a more deeper way beyond knowing in the head, but to know something from experience. So what are the 12 universal laws? Sometimes you'll find it, people say it's 13 universal laws, 7 universal laws, but I like the number 12. 12 is the number of what I call it's the number of God. You have 12 hours in a day. You had 12 disciples. What else? There's a lot of 12s out there. Can anybody think of some 12s that represents the divineness of God? If you can identify some 12s, go ahead and type them in to the chat there if you're in the Zoom room. For those of you who are on the YouTube live, I'll check in with you a little later. So the 12 months in a year. Come on now. 12 months in the year, 12 signs to the zodiac, 12 disciples. Yes, you guys see that number is there. The 12 universal laws can help you to adjust your understanding of why things are the way that they are, and it gives you a deeper meaning to what's going on and to life. The laws form a meditation for freedom. 12 stones of monument. All right, you're getting kind of deep there. There's 12 stones of monument, 12th day of February that we're in today. See how things are always working out for me. Even when they don't appear to be working out for me, things are always working out. All I have to be is consciously aware of that. So the laws are a form of meditation or freedom. We don't know where they originate from. I've read places where they say they originated in this place or the other place, but I like to always go back to the continent of Africa, from which all things began. And if you know the beginnings of things, and many people don't go to the continent because they have little regard for the continent, and even those who are from the continent, they have a hard time going to the continent. But I go there because I like to go to the place of beginnings. I like to go to the genesis of whatever I'm dealing with. And I find when you begin to study Kemetic science or the Kemetic spiritual science, you begin to bump into those things that are contemporary to us, like the 12 universal laws, okay? So they can really be rewarding when you begin to implement them in your life. Now, how do we apply the universal laws in our lives or our life? So we're going to kind of run through the 12 and we'll go from there. And I'm setting the stage for next week when I'll begin to teach the principles of prosperity. I'm going to do a deep dive, introduce you to some things, give you some homework, give you some assignments things you can listen to beyond, because I don't have the time to teach all there is to be taught, but there is those individuals who have taught them in a deeper way that I will connect you to. Good. Someone says, clarify the term contrast, please. Thank you. Contrast is simply this: whatever's showing up in your life that you want to get rid of, whatever's showing up in your life that you don't like, it's the fly is in the ointment. Okay, it's the salt in the pepper, or it's the salt in the sugar. Something that just don't go there. So when I talk about contrast, I mean, like when a person shows up to me in a coaching situation, they come to deal with a contrast. Example, it may be a relationship. If the relationship is not going the way they want it to go, they are thinking about it, they've probably worked on it, and it still is not showing up in a way that they wanted to show up, then that's contrast. So what we need to know is contrast is good, because contrast tells you that right here, right now, this is the thing you should be dealing with. Now, many times contrast comes in subtly, but because we're not paying attention to it, we don't attend to it. And then it come in a little stronger. And then until it comes into your life in such a strong, devastating way that now you got to deal with it. So contrast is part of the realm in which we live. Contrast gives you the opportunity to apply what you think you know. You don't know it until you can show it. You don't know it until you can apply it. That is the problem I had with Christianity, and still have it with Christianity as a minister, a pastor for such a long time. I saw so many people espousing the truthful ideas, but not applying them. And see, what we find ourselves wanting the God out there, a God somewhere other than the God in you, to change your life. So contrast will remain in your life until you have the true understanding that you create the contrast that is happening in your life. So many people are dealing with poverty because they've created poverty, because they have said, I'm saving for a rainy day. So guess what? One day it's going to rain. And when it rains, it's going to wipe up all your savings. And you'll find yourself in a situation where you have to have a do-over. So it's just so why do I put aside money? I don't put aside money because in case one day something happens and I need it, because whenever I need something, it manifests for me. I put it aside for a variety of reasons, because I have reached a point of godly satisfaction. So I don't have to spend every cent that I have. So I put it aside, also knowing that that wealth comes into my life, not just for my life. Like this morning, I went to Burger King on my way home, and I picked up a breakfast sandwich, and they was having a sale, two for two. For $2, you get two. So I purchased two for twos, because two of the twos I wanted for me, and the other two I wanted to bless somebody with. And so because I'm prosperous, I can bless someone. When you're living inside the land of just enough or not enough, guess what? You can't be a blessing. And if you're being a blessing when you got less than enough, then you are not taking care of your own house first. The word says, a man who does not take care of his own house first. And when I say a man, that means a male or female. If you're not taking care of your own house, and it doesn't necessarily mean the house with children and wife and dog, it means your house, your temple. You take care of yourself first, and then you can take care of others. And many times we believe that we take care of others first, then no. Love thy neighbor as thyself. So take care of yourself first. So there are 12 ways to apply the universal laws of life. So I call them the universal principles, the universal laws of life. When we look at the law of vibration, you're in constant motion that can inform your lived experience. So the law of vibration, this means that if you are manifesting a certain lifestyle, you have to adjust yourself to that desired level. You can apply the law of vibration by participating in mindful practices that promote the vibe. So when we talk about the law of vibration, we're talking about Everything that comes to you because they're vibrating at your frequency. So if you're attracting a certain type of person in your life, if you're attracting a certain kind of experience in your life, and it consistently happens, that means at the point of connection with that person or that experience, you are on the same vibrational frequency. Light always attract light. Opposites do not attract. Now, okay, but it may appear that two people are opposite, but at the point of meeting, they were on the same frequency. Either you had descended to that person's frequency, or your vibrational frequency had been toned down, or their vibrational frequency had been turned up. Now, this is something you need to know about vibrational frequencies. Just because someone is vibrating today at a particular frequency does not mean that that is their what I would call set point. Like, okay, another word would be homeostasis. A good example of that would be it's wintertime, and many of you all have your thermostats set on a certain temperature. Let's say you may set your thermostat for 74. Most times in my house, it's around 78 because I like hot. And so when it gets to 78 in my home, it cuts off. But the moment it gets down to, let's say, 75, it cuts back on. And it brings the temperature up. Likewise, when you meet a person, but it's set at 78, you may have a person in your life who have a particular frequency that's lower than yours, but for some whatever reason they want to experience the frequency that you're on, and they get to that frequency for that moment, and you bump into them. You may think that that person is on the same frequency, the same wavelength that you are. They are, but that's not their set point. So you got to look at a person to see, okay, that was their set point last night when I met them at the club. That was their set point when I met them in at the church, and we were talking about that. When I get in the day-to-day activity and I observe them, what's really their set point? What are they saying? What are they doing? What does their life really look like? So that the law of vibration is key. The law of attraction, which many of you are already familiar with, is the most popular of the 12 laws. It's used primarily for manifestation, and everybody wants to manifest something. Here we are into the second month of the year. Many people did vision boards. Many of them had thrown their vision boards on the floor or forgotten all about them because they put that up there, they visualized it, they did all the things, and it's not manifesting yet. But it was all about manifestation. We go to work because we want to manifest certain things. We go to work because we know work turns into compensation. Compensation is taken to the store, and we are able to purchase or manifest. But there's other ways that you can manifest. You don't have to work to manifest. You don't have to labor. The word of God tells us, labor not to get wealth or to get riches. There's another way to do it. That isn't to say that you can't have a service or a good that you actually take to the market. But we have to get to the place where to be in prosperity is not contingent upon the output that I put in the physical sense. So the law of attraction is something that many of you are familiar with. Good morning, Al. I see you there. Peace to my brother. You don't have to work to manifest. Come on now. And I have always had in my life more than I could have worked for. I lived in $1 million homes, but I wasn't making the $1 million salary. But the universe always makes a way for you to experience the thing you desire. When I was a kid, my parents used to take the long route out of the west side. When we were going fishing, they would purposely take the long route down St. Charles Road. And if you ever enter into the village of Elmhurst, go down St. Charles Road. You're going to see some palatial, some mansion-like homes. So as a little kid, this is what I was being seated with. And I think they did that for a reason. And I'm the only one in my entire family who has lived in that type of opulence based on size. Now, my mom had been a homeowner, and she's had some really nice, quaint little places. And for her, that was good. But I saw some things that made me want to manifest some things. So the law of manifestation is good. The law of attraction. Okay, so the law of attraction is about manifesting things. We all want to manifest something. We all want something different than what we are experiencing. That's why you're on the call. And you got to be okay with saying, I'm here because I want to experience prosperity at another level. I'm tired of living in the land of just enough, on the corner of barely getting by, on the alley of I'm almost broke. Okay. Another law, the law of oneness. And that's what we've been teaching as we moved into 2022. This is the year of you, a more powerful you. It's about becoming one with yourself. Someone says, I am here because I want to experience prosperity on another level. You have to own it, right, Courtney? You have to be willing to say, not just as an aside. You have to, you don't want to just bump into prosperity, but you want to be very intentional about experiencing prosperity and the peace that comes with it. So when we talk about the law of oneness, we're talking about everything is connected. Come on. It is the first and most foundational law of the universe. I had Tia sent me a great article this morning about, we've been talking about how we have personified, or the religious teachers have personified God as a he. And then she sent me an article that someone has written about maybe presenting God as a them or they. But I still want to stick with it, because it does not denote more than one. It denotes the oneness with many manifestations. What we do, we begin to drill God down into small bits, because we can't comprehend the breadth, the width, the scope of God. So we bump into experiences, we bump into things that represent God. Like we may see a beautiful sunrise and we say, look at God. But God isn't the sunset or the sunrise or the sunset. God is in the sunset. God isn't the rose, but God is manifested through the rose, just as God is manifested through each of us. And there is something that's common to all of us. Those who are on the call, those who believe what we believe, those who don't believe what we believe, those who are diabolical in nature, they have a common denominator, that they were created and that they have the ka, or the spark of God, the spirit of God. Now, it may be quenched because of their egos, because of their bond, which means because of their own wills, but we all have a commonness. So we got to understand the law of oneness. That's another universal law. The law of compensation. Whatever you sow, you will reap. Now, the law of compensation is a big part of prosperity, because if you believe that I only got just enough, and you don't do what you're assigned to do because you only got just enough, then you are going to learn a lesson about the law of compensation. Whatever you sow, you will reap. That's the mantra for the law of compensation, the law of recompense. This law is activated when you contribute to what you're manifesting. So, example, when I go to a restaurant, I often tip, even when the service does not measure up. I will still tip, and sometimes tip up and make a comment. Example, if someone is not really giving me the service that they know that they should give as a wait staff, sometimes I don't have to say anything to them, or they're more apt to be open to me saying something when they look at the fact he didn't even tip me 10%, but he tipped me 20%, and I will put on the bill, your service could have been better in these areas. They're able to hear me, because if I didn't leave any tip, their focus would have been on the fact that they're tipped less. But if I give them a tip and it's greater than what most people is giving them, they're now in position to hear. But I give in the way that I want others to give to me. I'm not perfect. I have my good days. I have more great days than good days, but you might catch me on a good day, and I still want what I do for others to be done for me. So the law of compensation, okay? What you sow is what you will grow. If you're not sowing the seed and keeping the seed in the cupboard, the seed has to go in the ground for it to bring forth the fruit of that seed. So the law of gender, this is one that's more on the in the conversation today. It relates to masculine and feminine energy, not masculine and feminine gender. It's not about gender. The law of gender is stated as the law of gender, only that it's taking a spiritual principle and presenting it to you in a way that you can perceive it. But when we talk about the law of gender, we're talking about the divine masculine and the divine feminine that exists in all things. Okay, to achieve this, you work on bringing balance into your life. You don't just run the right side of your brain or the left side of the brain, but there's the integrating. You don't just show up in life in the sense that I'm a female or a male and I only run that energy. You have to understand that the law of gender says that you need to operate the duality and bring it to one, bringing a balance between the two. That's important. The law of cause and effect. Okay, this is another law that you all probably are familiar with. All actions have a reaction, whether good or bad. And really, I say there's no such thing as good or bad. They're learning points, they're situations. Okay, so you might not experience the effect right away, but it's sure to come. It's sure to happen. And sometimes when it shows up in our lives, when that contrast shows up, you're like, whoa, where'd that come from? Look what happened to me. No, it didn't happen to you. It manifested through you because that's the seed you have sown. That's the action you have taken. So if you want your life to change and you have not changed anything about the way you're going through life, you're not going to get a different effect because the cause is still the same. So if you want to be prosperous, you can't just bump up against prosperity. You must be intentionally and take intentional actions, thoughts and actions and speech that will bring forth the harvest. So I like to see the law of cause and effect as harvesting what I've put in at some point. Now, it can come next week. It can come 6 months. I'm the kind of person that the law of cause and effect manifests in my life rather quickly. And I learned that early in life. So I have a tendency to give a lot of thought to the actions that I'm going to take because I'm aware of the consequences. Not that I'm afraid of things, but I know I can avoid a lot of contrast if I'm not putting contrast into the system. The law of relativity. Let me look here and see if I got any. Kai says inclusive language. Kai, if you can type a little more in there so I can make sure that we're on the same page and that others who are listening know what inclusive language. Oh, I believe I'm discerning you're talking about when we were saying traditionally, religiously, source is presented as God, and God depicts in our mind's eye a male entity. And then, so when we use language like them or them, they, which are gender neutral people, it makes space for others. So I think that's what you were alluding to. That's a wonderful way to handle that situation. Okay, good. Thank you to Wanda. Okay, so the law of cause and effect. The next one is the law of relativity. Your reality boils down to perception. Okay, it allows you to understand life with a greater compassion and comparison. So relatively, so sometimes we want to put ourselves in another person's shoes. So that's what's having compassion and not judgments, because you can say, except for the grace of God, there go I. Okay, I've been in a lot of different stations in my life. And it gives me appreciation for each station. And so when I see a person who is perhaps homeless, I am a little more compassionate. I don't automatically go to the judgments of, oh, they're going to go get some alcohol, or they're going to go get some a hit on the pipe. Hey, maybe they need that to knock the pain off that they're experiencing in the reality of their life. So let's not go into judgments, but let's look at things. All things are relative. So we got to begin to understand the law of relativity. Really important that we understand that. That'll help us to have greater compassion and comparison. When we don't want to compare apples against oranges. We want to be, like, example, I'm far down the road on certain things, but I also, as a teacher, have the compassion to remember where I was in kindergarten or when I started out. So I kind of know the struggles, I know the challenges, I know what you must go through in order to grow through. You can have all the teachings in the world, but know this: the teachings don't manifest until you say, I'm open to have the experience that is necessary, that there's application. So every day is a learning experience. So that's the law of relativity. Here's one: the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. One of the greatest energies we have is sexual energy. If you get a chance, read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. If you get the original edition, there's a chapter in there on sexual transmutation. It talks about how to use sexual energy, not sexual intercourse, not sexual intimacy, but the energy that comes from the divine masculine, divine feminine, to expedite and bring into fruition, or to help you show up in a more powerful way. So the law of perpetual transmutation of energy states this: your actions are preceded by thoughts and tend to fluctuate. So whatever you do is a result of the transmuting of a thought. As the man thinketh in his heart. So not the fleeting thoughts that go through your head, but those thoughts that steep inside of you, known as your beliefs, your anchor thoughts, the thoughts you always come back to. They perpetuate or transmute themselves into energy, and energy takes form. So if you have a lot of poverty around you, then you are maybe you're transmuting, you got poverty inside of you. Come on, you got a lot of sickness and disease showing up in your life, then perhaps you have a belief system that makes room for, example, I'm only human. It's part of the human condition. I don't buy into that. I understand that if I buy into just being merely human, being the formed and not the created, then I'm going to have those experiences. But even when this form, this body has human experiences, I am able to transmute them, triumph over them through my created self, my spiritual self. But you got to become familiar with the law of perpetual transmutation. Here's the one. Let me see if there's anything else being said over here. Okay, good. The law of polarity. Polarity. There's a positive and a negative to everything. Now, when we say positive, we think good. When we say negative, we think bad. But it's not. These are charges. And so when we think about the laws of prosperity, we think in terms of positive and negative charges of energy. You can activate this law by uncovering what is happening on the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay. So your life is on a spectrum. Okay. So at the highest end of the spectrum is what we will call the positive, the good. At the lowest end of the spectrum is what we will call the density, the darkness, and the bad, or not necessarily bad, or the undesired. Now, some people desire to operate in the darkness. Those people that work in dark magic, those people that just in that realm. But it's all on the same spectrum. It all comes from God. It's the same God that heals, the same God that kills, if you look in the Old Testament. So we have to see that we have the continue. That same sweet, kind person can be pushed to the limit where now you got a situation on your hand. Yeah, one of the movies one of my favorite movies was where the lady was pushed and then she burned up all his clothes. He never thought she would do that. So what we got to understand, all of us, we move up and down the spectrum of polarity. Nobody's always a 10, but when it goes beyond, like if you are in that 7, 8, 9, 10 realm, when you feel you're slipping into the 6, 5, 4, you need to ask yourself, why am I at this end of the spectrum? What did I just think? What did I just do? What did I just observe that got me in this frequency? They all work together. It all works together. The frequency comes as a result of where you're being polarized to. Okay? So you can activate, or you can begin to experience this when you look at, okay, if you are desiring to experience this, but you're experiencing that, you can look at why am I polarized at this place? What is keeping me here? Here's one, the law of rhythm. This law promotes fluidity, the flow. You ever dance with someone and he's like real rigid, but then you dance with that person who just got flow, they got rhythm, okay? This law promotes fluidity. You should activate this law by acknowledging your inner rhythm and not fighting against it. So part of acknowledging your inner rhythm is identifying the authenticity of you. Who are you? What makes you you? Many times we lose our authenticity because we've been taught to fit in to groupthink. So the law of rhythm, flowing through life, flowing with life, okay? In the rhythm, like if you watch an athlete, they hit that zone because they're in the flow. And so it's a trust. When you're in the rhythm of life, you have a trust with knowing that's why my rhythm statement is things are always working out for me. Even when they don't appear to be working out for me, things are working out for me. That puts me in the rhythm that gives me peace, that put me in a place where I don't have to exert anything, but know that everything is working out to my good. The scripture says all things work to the good of those who love the Lord or loves the universal laws and are called according to them. That is, you working in alignment with them. The law of correspondence. So the law of correspondence is if your life appears to be out of order, if your life appears to be out of order or you're content, it is a reflection of what is happening internally. So if you're at peace, that's because you got peace on the inside. If things are awry outside, I guarantee if you look inside, things are awry. So as above, so below, as inside, so on the outside. So it's the snapshot of your life reflects on what's inside your life. And so we have to be willing to say, you know what I'm seeing in my life is not what I want to experience in life. And so that could be why you came here. It could be that you came here, that your life is so out of whack that now you begin to apply the principles and you see that they work if you work them. That's important. Now, mirror work. Inside of law of correspondence, sometimes we don't look at ourselves. So if we don't look at ourselves, many times we use the mirror just to dress ourselves up, to make ourselves over. And that's not the purpose of the mirror. The mirror is so you can see what's really showing up. And then perhaps go to work on it in a natural way, not in some way of covering up, okay? So when we use the mirror, so life is the mirror. The people that are showing up around you are reflecting to you whether or not you're just like them, or you may see a person in poverty and you may say, even though I drive this, I work here, I'm really just like that person. Or I'm one paycheck away from being in that same situation. So you take right action. Or you can have people showing up in your life. Let's say you get a lot of people showing up in your life who's real messy. Either you are on the same vibration with them, or maybe you're showing up that they can see there's a contrast. So them looking at you and they can see peace, they can see order, they can see a person who's not messy, And I'm not talking about just messy in the way of having things over here, things over there, but I'm just talking about messy, just a messy person. Then that is a mirror for them to see, hey, all of us we're messy, but there's an image we're looking at right now that don't represent messy. And then they can either talk about you because you are not messy, or they begin to internalize and say, hey, you know what? I want to be like that. So sometimes we are in a situation to give a lesson. More times than not, though, we're in a situation to receive a lesson. That's the law of correspondence. So don't kick people out of your lives so quickly. Or you may keep kicking them out your life and you keep seeing the same person come back in a different form, different fashion, different face, at a different place. Then you got to come to the realization that maybe it's me that I need to be kicking out and forming a new me. The last one we look at is the law of inspired action. So there's right action and there's inspired action, okay? The word says, many are the plans of man. There's so many things that look right to do, but they are not what you've been inspired to do. So similar to the law of action, you attract what you want in life. You activate this law by creating space for internal guidance. That is by walking in the spirit, by opening up to your intuitive self versus living inside of the voice of reason and rationale, the voice of experience. Because there's some things you won't be able to do in life based on experience. Because what God is calling some of you to do, nobody has done. So you can't find the steps in a book. You can't find it through a consultation with someone who is a business mind. You can only get quiet and go into the silence and listen to and see what source is showing you. And then you get inspired. And then you take inspired action. Inspired action always trumps right action. Right action is when you're just doing what you want to do. But when you're doing the assignment that you come here to do, then you need to move away from right action and you need to move into inspired action. So there you have it. You got the 12 universal laws, but we're going to move starting next week into the prosperity series. Let me look here, see if I got any comments over here. If you got a comment, go ahead and make it over there in the chat, or if you want to drop in on us and share something with us in alignment with what has been spoken, go ahead and raise your hand, and so I can bring you online. We're right at the 10:57 or so. We got 3 minutes left in the hour, right on time. Okay, I got a new message over here. It says, oh, Courtney says good stuff. Thank you, Courtney. Let me look down in the YouTube channel to see if I got anything down there. That 1 second, let me see. Okay, as I look through the YouTube channel, I don't see any comments over there. So that's cool. So we're gonna come back here. So any questions about the journey we're about to embark upon? Oh, somebody had the question. The question is, does it cost anything? No, it costs nothing, or I'm not requesting anything, but it does cost something. First of all, it costs your time. Okay, so that's important. Your time is valuable. So I want to give you something worth the value of you spending time with you. Now, here's another thing. When we talk about the law of compensation, if you are a prosperous person, now this one sign of prosperity, that you always bless those who bless you, or you always ask, is there something I can do? Like when they came to hang my picture yesterday, it was a beautiful picture that was framed. I didn't want to frame it. Okay, I couldn't frame it for one. It was too large. I didn't want to hang it because I wanted to make sure it's been hanged properly. Only because I'm prosperous that I could pay this amount of money for this frame and to have not paid, I think the coming out and hanging it was $100. They just put 2 nails in the wall, did a couple of things, they hung it for $100. But they had the right tools. So I could very easily say, you know what? I paid for the framing. I paid for all the things they did. and I paid for them to come and hang it. And so that's that. But when those 3 guys were about to leave, I asked them, because I didn't have any cash on me. I said, do any one of you have a cash app or instrument that I can send you a blessing so you all can go get a beer or whatever you want to do? And then they said, no way. This is what we do. And sometimes, but I did what I felt right to do, is I offered to bless them because they've been a blessing to me. But you can only, many times you may have wanted to bless someone, but you didn't have nothing to give. You really didn't have nothing to give. Then you're not prosperous. And so we got to come to some baseline. Times like that show up to show you that you're not prosperous. And then you say to yourself, if I had it, that means I wish that I had it, that I could bless that person. Then that's a sign that you're not as prosperous as you need to be. Okay? But if you find yourself, when you get value from someone, you run off and you don't show gratitude. Sometimes gratitude is simply saying thank you, good stuff, love the teaching. Those are acts of sowing back into the person. But also, if we live in a material world, and if you're prosperous people are always blessing people. So prosperous people don't beg. That's why many times I don't, you see, I don't do what many ministers do. I don't do what many gurus do. They put out there that this teaching is going to cost you this. I trust the universe. I trust wholeheartedly that it takes care of me. And sometimes they come in the form of other individuals. So that's all I have to say this morning. But if this ministry has been a blessing to you and want to bless this ministry, simply go to the website, Oasis Spiritual Center. And if you're on YouTube, you can go to the description part and you press that little arrow and it gives you all the links that you can sow a seed. Not only do you sow a seed, but make sure you join the feed. That way I can keep up with you and I can send you some things. All right, we're going to wrap up. I got 1 minute left. Is there any questions? All right, looks like there's no questions. If there's no questions, I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bring somebody with you. Just simply email them the invitation that I sent you and tell them to fill it out. And once they fill it out, then they go into the system and it automatically will let you know an hour before the teaching that guess what? In an hour, we will have the prosperity teaching. Or if you're on the YouTube channel, it will let you know, well, we got a new teaching. It's been dropped into the YouTube channel and it notifies you. So that's what I can do for you. And I hope that something has been said this morning that's been uplifting and encouraging. I look forward to seeing you on the rest of this journey. Peace. Have a wonderful day.